Well, welcome to Retire Repurposed. Last week, we explored the power of doing less, clearing away clutter and distractions that can prevent us from experiencing true purpose in retirement. But that conversation naturally leads to an important question. If we're doing less of what doesn't matter, what exactly should we be doing more of? Well, today, Ben Taatjes reveals the 5 essential areas that truly deserve your focused attention and intentional effort in retirement. These aren't just good things to consider, they actually represent the core foundations of a repurposed life. Whether you're planning for retirement someday or already there, understand that these 5 domains will help you direct your energy toward what genuinely matters. Join us as we move from simplification to amplification, discovering not just what to minimize, but what to maximize in this significant season of life. Enjoy this episode. All right, welcome back to the show, everybody. Jared Sebesta joining you on another episode of Retire Repurposed. We are so glad that you are joining us here today. We've got another fantastic episode in store for you today. We're going to talk about how do you really live this life of living a repurposed retirement. If you are new to the show, this is a different flavor of retirement a conversation that you're probably used to hearing about or maybe not used to hearing about. We'll talk about finances occasionally on the show, but where does life and purpose and retirement all mix? That's what we talk about on this show. So if you're new to the show, welcome. If you have listened to us for a while, maybe years, welcome back. All right, on last week's show, we talked about this idea of really kind of essentialism, less is more type of thing, where if you really want to do some great things in your life, especially in retirement, many times you have to do less of the things that are less important. Ben Taatjes joins me on the show now, and when we were talking about last week's show and prepping for last week's show, what came to mind for me was this book by Greg McKeown, very popular book called Essentialism. The subtitle is The Disciplined Pursuit of Less. And we kind of applied that to retirement, and I think that you would agree with that is a really, really great mindset to have going into retirement.
Yeah, the idea of less is more. You got to know what the more is, right? What you're going after. I'm looking forward to talking about that today with you. But I think, Jared, I see it all the time as I meet with retirees, because that's what we get to do every single day here. People start to come to this realization later in life. Usually it's like, in my life, I've had too much of the stuff that didn't matter, too much of the stuff that money can buy, if you will, too much of the stuff that it really took me away from the things that did matter. Mm-hmm. And it's not as simple as, well, it's just time with my family. That is part of it. And the stuff that we try to hold on to so tightly in this world ends up being gone anyway. Mm-hmm. But I think it's even deeper than that. It's not just, I should spend a little more time with my kids. It's the way I look at life. People first. Mm-hmm. Impacting people around me. We talk about legacy versus inheritance in past shows. Like, inheritance, that's the money your kids are going to spend. Legacy is a lasting impact on people, right? And towards the end of life, people are looking to have left a mark on people. They're looking for legacy. Did I do enough? Did I accomplish enough? Yes. But did I do enough for the people around me? And that's usually where, what's less, right? Yeah. When you downsize, when you say, I'm going to do less of the stuff that doesn't eternally matter and more of the stuff that does, that's going to leave you with a very fulfilled retirement.
Seems like we have to kind of declutter our lives. Sometimes you just have to go through the garage and, clean it out, clean out that closet or that basement. It feels good when it's done. And you can actually kind of see what you have, and it's much more functional, I think, on a similar level. That's how life is, especially once you get into retirement. Let me ask you a question. Do you think that people underestimate how much, I don't want to say clutter, but yet how many opportunities perhaps come up? I think it's just kind of knowing that, like, once you retire, everything slows down. But you've seen a lot of times where people, if they're not careful, their life starts to kind of get cluttered up with some of these things that, albeit aren't bad, but they aren't the great things that they're maybe destined for.
Yeah, sometimes it's even volunteer work. It's even like, I do this, I do that, and I volunteer in there. And sometimes if it's not really in your, like, your I don't know how to say it, but really if it's not part of getting back to what that repurposed statement is, what really allows you to thrive. It's not part of your calling. And yeah, I volunteer, but I'm not in it.
Yeah.
Get out of it. And I hope that doesn't, I hope people don't, I hope what they do with that is they say, am I in the right volunteer position? Because it's not as easy as just, I'm going to volunteer at my church, or I'm going to volunteer at the food shelf, I'm going to volunteer here and there, but find something that you're truly passionate about and then spend a lot of time there. And going back to last week's show, Jared, I too don't want people to hear this like, oh man, I've got to sell everything I own and go with this, this mindset of I can't have nice things. It's not the things.
Right. That's not what we're talking about.
It's the control of those things on your life. And when they start to get in place of the people and the relationships within your life, and you're like too busy chasing after more of those things for the wrong reasons, or you're using those things for the wrong reasons, and it's more self-absorbed type look, that's the caution that we're really sharing there.
I heard a quote, or saw a quote online somewhere. It said something to the effect of, people aren't burnt out because they're working too hard. They're burnt out because they're putting so much energy into the things that aren't really in alignment. I love the word alignment. You love that word as well. Yeah. That's really kind of what we're getting at, isn't it?
Yeah. And if you're not aligned with your purpose, you're going to struggle. Right. And that's what we see. And that's probably the single biggest thing we see when people leave the workplace, and they, especially if there's somebody that has really tied that work into more like not identity, but to some extent it's got them the closest they've been to God, and how that they are a creator like he was.
That's right.
And then they walk away from that and they don't replace it with something else that is meaningful. That's when they really start to struggle. And I've seen it play over many, many times. And it's something we always want our clients on the that we work with here to realize you can balance this well-deserved rest with purposeful activity. And in fact, they're not on different sides of the coin. They're the same. Like you should be elevating your rest and your enjoyment of life by doing those things.
Yeah, that's a great way to put it, because these are not two separate entities. They actually kind of flow from one another. When you're in alignment, when you're doing purpose-driven work, then all of a sudden, bam, you get as a result the earned rest and the really, really good rest. If you missed last week's show, go back, check it out. That's a really a great show where we kind of dive into these two different sides of this coin. How do you really go after the great things by decluttering and living a life of less to get the great? On this week's show, we're going to dissect more kind of that more side to the coin. What are the things that you should or could really deep dive into to really make sure that you are connecting with who you are, and really, again, letting retirement be the season it should be, to have the legacy and to have the impact. We've got a set of 5 things we're going to cover here today. Ben, where do you want to start with this one?
Well, it's not a hierarchy. There's not like an order, but let's just kind of pop these in as we go. And I think the first one ties in with what I just said in last week's show. And that comes down to having really some purpose and we'll just call it purpose-driven work. And I'm using the word work there intentionally. We talked before the show. I'm like, can we use work even in retirement? And I think, if you understand what work is, right? I mean, I think that's one of the biggest problems in our society today is work gets a bad name. People are like the negative side of work, right? I want your work in retirement to more mirror maybe the work before the fall, right? Before Adam and Eve, right before the sin that came into the world. Like this should be, I'm not saying it's going to be perfect, but you should be able to pick and choose what those activities are that you do without the thorns, if you will. So if you look at, the pre-fall work, there wasn't weeds and thorns, it was just gardening, and it was fulfillment that came out of that place in the garden. Remember, there was work prior to the fall. And I think if we can get back to that, say, okay, the thorns, the world is still sinful. We're still going to have those problems, even in this retirement kind of repurpose mode, but you're choosing what you want to do, and you're choosing the favorite parts of your job that you had.
That's right.
And making more of those happen.
Yeah.
Right. So back to my favorite question, you know what I'm going to say is like, what was your favorite day of work? What was the best day you had? What did you do? And why did you feel the way you felt? Well, most people, I mean, I've never had anybody say, well, it's payday. But yet for some reason in our society today, everything is about the paycheck, and it's about, well, I'm working. I'm kind of, on a daily grind here to get the paycheck. It shouldn't feel like that.
Yeah.
We should love work because it does create an opportunity for us to be creative.
Yeah.
Creates an opportunity for us to make a difference in other people's lives. And I think that's the single biggest piece that even in retirement, we have to work towards getting, I guess, that work in our life.
Talk to that person, because there's people most definitely listening to the show that they're in the job, they're in the grind, to be honest, I think if they were honest, I don't want to speak on people's behalves, but as they listen to you talk, they're probably thinking, they're kind of doing a little eye roll here, where it's like, you know what, I just want to be done. I want to be done working. I'm burnt out. I'm tired. I'm retiring in 2 years, 3 years. And you know what I want to do? I want to do nothing. You know what I mean? But give them a little word of encouragement that there is something that does resonate with like your deeper purpose. And once you find that, even though you'll be doing air quotes work, it won't feel like work.
Yeah, I mean, certainly first of all, take the Sabbath, right? I love that. God works 6 days and took a day off, right? To rest and look at what you've done. Do that. Reflect on, again, why, what was your favorite part of the job? What was the best things, that you did? Look at your experiences. We've got an entire workbook, Jared, that we've created, and questions and things. If somebody wants that, get a hold of us. We'd love to share it with you. But I think that's that season where you look at your past life and say, okay, what did I do? And which parts were beneficial to me, and then lean into those, right? So there's absolutely a place for rest. And when you're that season, I used to say, well, don't retire, from something, retire to something. You got to have it all ready to go. And you don't. I mean, that's something I've learned since writing the first version of the book. It's like, well, you don't have to have it all figured out. Retirement, you're going to make some mistakes. You're going to be like, yeah, this was not right. We're all trying to get better at this. I think retirees need to hear that if you simply look at self-focused items, you're going to fall short. I don't even know why I have to say that. It's crazy. I mean, I just think we know that. Everybody knows that if they've continually focused on themselves, they're not going to be happy. So if you're looking at what your retirement is going to look like, it has to be other focused. So when you're looking at what that repurpose is in the next stage of life, again, it's in our workbook. You start at a certain point, but at the end of that discussion of the skills, talents, abilities, passions, all that stuff, you get to the who, right? Who are you going to serve? And that's the piece I think people need to hear. If they're hearing like, yeah, I just want to be done. You probably do. You're probably burned out. There's probably a season now that you need rest, but don't take too long, right? And make it sure it's a meaningful break where you're trying to figure out what the next thing is.
I think that's a really great word for people to hear. And again, I keep coming back to the word alignment, which is not really a word that's used in your book a lot, perhaps, or even the workbook, but that's really what you're getting after. And once you get aligned, then you feel the fulfillment that you're really actually seeking. And to your point, this is more than just finding something to do. We mentioned on last week's show, there was a reel floating around, and it was like, there was a gentleman out there, and he was, he's a little hesitant authority because he has a couple of books out on a platform, but he was like, you got to really be careful in retirement, saying the same things we do.
Yep.
And he's like, you just, at the end of it, he was like, you just got to find something to do. And I just cringed. That's not exactly it.
No, it's so much bigger than that. That's passing time.
Yeah.
It's like, if you look at what a retired person does, they pass time. I find things that occupy my time, but I don't actually get much accomplished. Just staying busy.
Yeah.
Whereas somebody that's living a more of a repurposed retirement, they're purposeful. So I'm intentional about finding and living a purpose-filled life. There's a big difference between passing time and being purposeful, right? And just staying busy. Hey, you got to stay busy. Well, no, you have to stay purposeful. You have to be intentional about what you're doing. Otherwise, Mondays or Tuesdays or Wednesdays, what day is it? I'm not sure. Well, I have a structure. to my week. I have things I do, even if it's as simple as I go to the Y each morning and then I do this and then I end my day with, there has to be some structure because work gave you that. You've got to kind of replace that in retirement.
And probably have to be way more intentional, not probably, do need to be way more intentional with that. So that's number 1 of 5. The second one comes back to kind of community, which is a big part of your book and of the platform.
Yeah, I mean, that's everything, Jared. I think there's a reason that, one of the worst things I was watching a movie the other night and they threw some guy, I think he was in the general population of the jail, and they threw him into isolation, right? Isolated confinement, right? They said, oh, how's this? And they spent time there alone. There's a reason that's one of the worst forms of punishment. We are not created to be in isolation, right? We're created to be in community with others, and work does give us that. Even if you don't like you're probably hearing this thing, you're like, yeah, I'm winding towards the end of my job, and my work people, I'm kind of ready to be done with them. Like them or not, they're creating community, right. And we have to continue to build community, both broader, but also the closer couple friends that stay in our life, and that probably will not be the guys from work, the friends, the ladies from work. They're going to be still working. It's going to look different. So I think community is a huge part, and making sure we're not isolated. You
talk about the importance of having friends. I mean, you and I are we're both in kind of different stages of life than a retiree. I have young kids, so we're just busy at home, and but at every once in a while I'm like, it would be fun to go out with a couple of buddies. It's fun. It's not funny, but it's interesting as you go through life. When you're a kid, you have just boatloads of friends, almost too many friends. And as we go deeper into life, it's like they just kind of go away. Maybe we don't prioritize it, but to your point, that's a really, really big deal. You should have at least a friend or two really close friends, especially at this point. Yeah, it's more important than ever, and it's easy to kind of not have that in retirement. It's easy to pull away. Yeah, I'm guilty of that right now, Jared. I mean, I'm just, if I don't see you at work and see people at work, it's like, I'm not that in tune with some people, and you need that group, right? That you can turn to, and because we all know, I mean, even if things are going good right now, the next challenge is on the horizon. The next problem is going to come up, and you want people with you in the good times, certainly, but also in the tough times. Yeah. And I think having community is important in both. Yeah, community and some friends as well. I have to share this really, really quickly because to me, it kind of illustrates this point. Whenever I go pick up my kids from church night or an activity, I will go there. I will volunteer to pick them up, because guess who you see there when you go pick them up? You see other parents and stuff. And then, of course, my kids are always like, let's go. Don't get chatty, Dad, blah, 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 blah. And I'm like, this is my time. This is my social hour, because I just don't have the ability to have a thriving social life where I'm at. So I mean, this is my social life. Don't take it from me.
No, I love that. I love that. My wife tends to linger a lot longer after church than I do. And I've been called out on this lately, and kind of like, I probably should do more of that. But at the end of the day, I'm like, I have been visiting with, I probably saw 30, 40, whatever different people that week, and the team and everything. And I just need to recharge that tends to be something she needs that I don't at that time. And I got to remember, keep that in my life as well.
Absolutely. So what's next? We're talking about purpose-driven work, community. What's next?
Well, as long as I'm talking about my wife, let's go there. I think we need to be very connected if you're married to your spouse in this time. I mean, I think when we look at the more side of the coin, like if we're doing more of the things, do more of the things that only you can do. Like you are the only man that can be husband to your wife, and that's my role. And I even hesitate in saying that right now, because I feel like sometimes I'm not doing that role well enough. And I think when you get to that point where you look at the most important things someday, it will be the things that only you could do. And again, that's being a loving husband to your wife. and that's being a good wife to your husband. That's your spousal connection. There's so much opportunity there for retirees, but it's also a scary, scary time. There's a reason that statistically the largest group of people getting divorced right now are newly retired individuals. It's because you've had this life that started when you're tight together, right? You're married in honeymoon stage, and then you get a dog, and maybe, hopefully not a cat, but you get pets, and you get kids, and you get career, and you get other friends, and you get hobbies, and pretty soon you're way apart, and then you get slammed back together. Now we're going to spend all this time together. And the reality of it is, you haven't done that for a while. So you had different interests. You got different friend groups sometimes. And I think it's just important. I'm looking at in a couple of years being empty nesters, and my wife's challenged me. She's like, hey, we've got to be doing more stuff together, because I think otherwise you don't have that glue of the kids there. And now you're empty nesting. And then even more than that, now all of a sudden you're retired, and then you don't have your job either, and you're just always together. And it's a cautionary tale for everybody out there, but I'm saying it to myself, is like, maintain that spousal connection.
Yeah. It's almost like we talk about like practicing retirement. You mentioned that in your book, like teachers are really good at retiring because they practice. This is almost kind of another one of those things. Like, even if you're not retired yet, start practicing like reconnecting with your spouse. If you're not doing date nights or connecting regularly, make sure that you're doing that. So when it comes, you're ready.
Yeah, that's something that we all need to just hear and remember is, that spousal connection's huge.
Yeah.
And retirement's tough. You look at life changes. That's a big life change. Retirement's tough, Jared, and it's not going to be as simple as some people think it is. They're like, I'm just going to retire, and obviously I won't have work, so it's going to be easy. It's not easy. It is a challenge. That's a major, major life change. So more than anything, you need a spouse to talk about with that, somebody that's really close to you and be open with that. Friends that are going through the same life stuff as you are, but your spouse for sure. We need to reestablish that connection probably at times, but certainly foster that relationship. Figure out what you do like to do together. We need some time apart. I mean, your spouse can't be everything to you. You need the friend group, but you still have to realize that you're the only person that can be a spouse to your husband or wife, and I think that's important.
We've got just a few minutes left here. We're going to cover 4 and 5. The fourth one is physical health. We won't spend a lot of time on this, but what an opportunity. You know what I mean? Look at it like that. What an opportunity for you in this season to really refocus on your physical health.
Yeah, I mean, I'm the wrong guy to probably talk about physical health right now because I'm going so hard on the business, and that's the first thing that I let kind of slide, and I'm being reminded, walk and make sure you're getting exercise. I mean, I'll just say, if you're in this getting ready for retirement mode and you're a active person, be very, very careful that you're keeping activity in your life. Sedentary lifestyle. I mean, even my job now, while it be a sedentary office type job, I'm still going back and forth to work. I'm still getting out and I'm walking here and there, and it's giving me guardrails. Make sure you keep activity in your life, and it's a great opportunity to even do more of that. Under doctor's orders, like say, hey, what can I do to make sure I'm staying in good health? Yeah,
and again, not when you have now the free time that retirement affords you. Again, look at it as that what you just said, an opportunity to kind of crank this area of your life up to whatever capacity, to wherever that means for you. The last one, as you would probably agree, this is probably the most important piece where you can really focus on.
Yeah, it's connection with our Creator, right? So God, again, has made you unique, and He's made you with certain skills, abilities, talents, and He's made you with gifts to bless people with. And if you're not doing that, and you're not connecting to Him, you're not going to see the fruit of that. So again, I love every time I sign a book that I give to somebody, I write 1 Peter 4:10 in there, and hopefully they look it up. If you don't, it says each one should use whatever gift he or she has received to serve others, faithfully administering God's grace in its various forms. I love that verse, especially for a retiree, because I can really step into and lean on the gifts I've been given to, again, make a difference in others, right? I mean, that is the key, I think, to making sure your retirement is fulfilling and you're not just happy, but you're full of joy.
Securities offered through Avantax Investment Services. Member FINRA SIPC. Investment advisory services offered through Avantax Advisory Services. Insurance services offered through an Avantax affiliated insurance agency.